Good evening, everyone. Anthony Tharp again. Just following up on the project. Our mission is to fix things in Jamaica. Hopefully, we help to fix things globally. Again, there's a repercussion where you do one thing in one part of the world, it inspires change in the other in one way or the other. So, our objective is to build Jamaica and change Jamaica for the betterment of, firstly, all Jamaicans, whether they're at home or in the diaspora, but more significantly for our children coming up. Because I really don't want to have our children going through the things I have had to go through just for being Jamaican and wanting to do the right thing. I was brought up to live the best life possible in relation to other people, respect their lives, and try and offer society the best thing we can. And again, the problems we're having, it's systematic. It's been with Jamaica for decades, and the cronyism has to stop. And sadly enough, the cronyism and the corruption has always existed in the upper echelons of society, in white collar jobs, in businesses. If you remember correctly, well, if you're much younger than I am, then when I was leaving school, in the 70s, high school in the 70s, late 70s, mid 70s, if we didn't have contacts at a bank or some insurance company or some other enterprise, hotel, you couldn't land a good job. So it was always, corruption was always in the air. And the reality is, regardless of how qualified you were or unqualified, or how good you were, intelligent you were, it didn't matter. If you didn't know, or your parents didn't know somebody, and somebody knew somebody, you would be stuck in the world of struggle and wondering, where is my destiny? And I think that's the reason why a lot of young people migrated in those days. Parents took them and ran away and left the country, because the opportunities for people like me and you just weren't there. And it's even more difficult now, believe it or not. So we need to do something. And as I said, I keep plugging the Haitian crisis, because Haitians are just like us. They're our family members. I'm pretty sure if we go into some genetic testing, you'll find that they're cousins. We are cousins. We have lots of cousins there. We came on the same ships. Some were dumped in Haiti, some were dumped in Jamaica under the Spanish, and then later, obviously, under the British, a lot of them came. But the reality is, whatever is happening in Haiti is affecting us. So we need, as Jamaicans, to step up, fix our situation, ensure that our national security is effective, and to make sure that we have an influence on how life emerges in Haiti. But before we can get anybody to look at us and inspire after us, because we're doing the right thing, we have to do the right thing. And Jamaica is in turmoil right now. Our political leadership, I mean, there's no explanation. It's in the news. It's all over. It's global. And it's an embarrassment. But apart from the embarrassment, it's killing our country, because it's showing how corrupt our political leaders are. And I'm going to comment on a few of the comments that you sent in. And I did do some research on Mr. Pattison, just briefly, because I didn't know who he was, and a lot of persons kept saying to make contact with him. And as I've said to those persons, Mr. Pattison, I have no objection with us networking on building this country. And all the other suggestions there. So that's dealing with Mr. Pattison. I didn't find much on him per se. And so one person said, how do we know he's not just as bad? Well, the reality is we won't know until we check out the brother. So one of the things that I'm saying to my people and to Jamaicans and people globally, one of the first things we need to do is establish screening processes for our politicians. And that goes whether you're in Jamaica, whether you're in the US, whether you're in Haiti, Europe. You've seen that political leaders get in and they have to be under investigations for this, for that. They're tried in France, for example, in Germany, all over. South America is pretty big on the agenda with that. Lots of corruption. And Africa, don't even mention Africa. But it goes right back to what I've been saying and suggesting, is that we need some way to amend or adjust our democratic process. It's not just enough for people to form political parties, select a few people, they select these people, then throw them in the arena and we vote for them. I think we need to go back to ancient Africa, especially West Africa, where the people chose the leaders. The people decided who they wanted to run, not via some campaign by the individual who was funded by a lot of persons with special interests. But it was the village people, the people in the towns, who selected somebody from amongst themselves and say, you go represent us. And I think we need to get back to that, where we have leadership in the community are identified by the people, and the people encourage those persons to run, because then you're going to get a better leader, a more dedicated leader, and people you could trust. And then, of course, put in place the organizational structures that we can let them know we're working with you, but we're watching and keeping a check or tally of the things you do. And so have incentives or disincentives. So incentives to encourage them to do a good job, and disincentives to tell them, if you don't do a good job, then this is the consequence of you being chastised in one way or another. For example, bar them from running again. If somebody is corrupt and there's rumor about them being corrupt, just don't let them run in a general election to represent your country. Because, for example, Jamaica, from I was growing up, they have politicians there that are still politicians. And in fact, a few of them made the top list of richest politicians in the Caribbean. And those people have been politicians all their lives, all of my life. And no other job yet. They're millionaires, I mean, big time, hundreds of millions of dollars that we know of. What about what the hidden funding? And there are no explanations how they got here. Because, it's illegal under the Jamaica Constitution for civil servants to have a second job or a business. Or, I see the logic of it. I don't agree with it, because I think if you're ethical and you're doing your job and you have the capability of running a business, then you should. But the reason they had put that in place was because of corruption, the perception that people are going to have their own conflicts with society's policies and programs and development with their own, if they are running their own enterprise. So I think persons who want to become our political leaders, or those we select, must be able to make that sacrifice. Once you're in government, you can't be out there running businesses and competing with the ordinary Jamaican or your citizen or your resident, whichever country you're from. It's a conflict of interest. It doesn't look good, and it's going to lead to corruption, because the reality is, if you have contracts or you have a business that other persons need those services, chances are they're going to burn other people and give the political leader or the president or the prime minister or the premier, whatever the entitlement is, they're going to give it to those people's businesses. And that is not good for the rest of the country, because you're depriving ordinary citizens who are paying a salary of the opportunity to build their economy and build the economy of the country. And selfishly, that's what's been going on. Sadly enough, we are the ones that allow it. I mean, I say we are the ones, I'm talking about the ordinary Jamaicans, the citizens, the people who vote. We see what's going on, we know what's going on, and yet we allow it. And, so we encourage the corruption. And again, I'm going to address the whole, cooperative arrangements or relationships between different sectors of the economy, which contribute to corruption. The politicians in the country can't get away with corruption if the press is doing its job. And we don't find that in Jamaica. The press is either ducking, hiding, refusing to cover the stories or, about these politicians. If you have something that you believe is rumor, go investigate it and publish it. If it's not true, you can disprove it. but you need to let people know this is what's going on. This is what the society is saying. These are the kind of rumors that are floating around about this person. And therefore you give the citizens of the country the opportunity to decide whether we need these people there or not. So again, the press is a major contributor to corruption in Jamaica. And we can say it liberally here because we've given them information, right across the board. We've given them information that exposes the ongoing crime, not only against us, because as I've said and continue to say, is that if it's happening to me and my partners, then what's going on with other persons? It must be going on as well. It can't be an isolated case. These attorneys who are playing, with people's lives, stealing their properties, using the courthouse, is not doing it as a one-off, as a crime of opportunity. It's calculated, it's done deliberately, and it's an ongoing systematic program and policy amongst them. That's their business model. And unfortunately, again, the people who know it's happening don't do anything about it. Now, a lot of us might say, oh, it's not hurting anybody, but it's hurting you. It's hurting the country, and you're destroying lives. As I said, when people get hurt or they're robbed or violated, because that's a violation. It's not just when people get abused sexually or otherwise. Violations occur when people break into your homes, they take your stuff. People just come in and bully their way into your lives, take your stuff. You intimidate people, you're bullying them, and it's a violation of those people's human and civil rights. So when attorneys go into court and violate people, the persons who are working in a court and know it's happening keep their mouth shut and say nothing about it. I remember a couple of occasions I went to the court and I was asking, what's happening with this order? I submitted this, I submitted that. And I said, I submitted in accordance to the rule. And I remember one senior administrator there, I won't call her name, she's been there for a while. She said, you did I talk about rules? These judges make up their own rules. And it goes back to what I said at one point, that there are rules in the civil procedure rule that needs to be changed. You can't have a rule of thumb and then you have a judge just changing it at will, whether deceptively or think it's creative. No, you have a rule. Just like you have a mandatory sentence, a judge can't change it. You have a rule, the rule must stay in place so that everybody can follow that rule and is bounded by the rule. So this clerk or this administrator literally said to me that you can go on and think about you follow rules. So them judges make up their own rules, which indicates that, and again, as I've said, people in the courts who are working, who are honest, know it's happening and they do nothing about it. I'm pretty sure there are persons there who see me come there on a regular basis asking about what's happening to these cases, why aren't they set, and they give me all kind of excuses, but the reality is they know why. They're not telling me, but they know why. And so we need to, again, address those issues, and the only way to address those issues is to separate the judges and the administration of those institutions from the politicians. Because you can't have politicians sitting on every board that has influence over everything that happens in the society. Because what happens is when you have a board being prepped with politicians from the ruling party, then you're bound to have a conflict of interest. They're there to make sure that things work in favor of their party or politicians that come. It's only natural, and that's why they do it. When you have a judge sitting on a judicial service commission board, or have a seat on the board to make decisions about what happens to attorneys when they go afoul, then obviously we're going to have problems, because there's that bias, and an attorney in Jamaica or elsewhere, they don't want to necessarily burn another attorney, so they do everything to preserve them and protect them, and therefore means that there is a major conflict of interest, and the ability to now be objective, is removed from the equation, and therefore we end up as the citizens of the country suffering. And if the citizens of the country are suffering, then the entire country is in trouble. But that's what's happening. So we need to address those issues, and as I say, separate the political parties and politicians from regulatory bodies. We need to set them up. We need to have an independent oversight committee or body that they report to. They don't report to the government or the ministers. That, stuff that the ministers are likely to be involved with, which is in conflict with the laws or the interests of the public, and then these same ministers are the ones that have to make decisions about it. You know the outcome of that. And one of the things that, why we put out these videos, and we've been insisting that the Integrity Commission don't give us any excuses, because we're providing you with the evidence. It's current, it's authenticated, and it's right where you can go and touch it. Don't tell us you don't have the information or the evidence there, because that's why I made the world know. And every person that's viewing this, you have a role now to hold them accountable. Because unless we start doing that, it means when your business comes in front of a court, or a decision has to be made that is going to affect you as a citizen of the country, when you have this kind of corrupt relationship, or a person who is a judge that has to make a decision, falls under the influence of a politician that now they don't want to disappoint, then there's a problem. We also need to establish tenure. We shouldn't have judges sitting up there all their lives. I think the rule now is a judge retires at 70. I mean, some people maintain their faculties at 70. I'm not even near that yet, but guess what? Or I'm near. Yeah, I'm about 64, no, 65. Yeah, but 70, I certainly don't want to have all that responsibility at 70. All that reading, your eyes fading, you're tired, you just want to relax. That's how old people behave and feel, and that's natural. So why you have people 70 sitting on a bench making decisions and not questioning their intellect or that? But like everybody else, you need to retire and go enjoy some of your life. And as I said, train people in the ways of the judiciary that we want trained in a certain way to sit on the judiciary. And if you're going to be a judge, special training for that position. We don't just pick up attorneys from anywhere and bring them in because they're available and they need a job and put them as a judge. Because again, an oversight committee is needed to vet them, to check them out thoroughly, look at everything, pull out their linen and clean, see if it's clean, the pillowcase, everything, check the drawers for what they have in it to see if we have any things in the closet that we need to be aware of. And if there's the slightest indication of impropriety, then we need to reject these people and pay them well, because we don't want them to be in there desperate for money and then sell the state to some unscrupulous individual by their bad decisions. And if we pay them well and then we catch them doing that anyway, because people are greedy and they don't think, they do stuff that logic is defied, then you give them the maximum term. They should get more time than the ordinary person, because they took a vow to make sure that they dispense justice, they adjudicate matters in favor of the innocent or the non-victim or the party that is deserving of it. And when we find it's contrary to that, then we deal with them and let's send us a signal to society. So we're descendants of Africa, and African kingdoms in the 17, 15, 14 century and before, BC, before Christ, were some of the most sophisticated operations and political structures in the planet. Now, we need to re-examine some of those political structures and then adapt ours to one that works. As I said, we shouldn't have the citizens of a country sitting around and waiting for a person to go join a political party and then decide we have to vote for one or the other. I believe in independent candidates. For one, the best person runs. Political party is good, yes, but we've seen how that works. So we need to address those issues, and so we could move forward. So the objective again of the videos was in fact just to give you an overall idea of what we are suffering, and that you would take that information and spread it to the rest of the country, the rest of the island, to the people all over, so they can, address it. And again, make the march. You don't have to go in the streets and march. Fine, if you want to march, do it. That's your right. But make it known that we're not going to tolerate this kind of thing. And one or two people can't do it. So I noticed some persons referred that Mr. Patterson is a one person. They don't know who his candidates are. And as I said, I just did some basic research. I don't know. I don't want to explore or guess about anything. But again, a political leader wanting to start another political organization should have a manifesto, should have his people lined up, should have a strong structure in terms of revenue generation, and how are we going to end up with the same thing where people come in and give the parties money and then they have to pay them back in some way or the other. We have to work out those things, and I think a new political party coming in needs to develop programs and policies that says to people, we're not going to run on money that we paid by special interests, because that's one of the primary areas we have corruption. These special interest people pay a person to run our political party, to run and support them, and then of course you see those people getting the jobs, they're working the contracts, they're doing this, and then this nonsense about politicians having to choose who gets contract. That's one of the most serious indicators that we want to live in a corrupt society. No politician should be involved with issuing contracts or identifying people who are to get contracts. We need an independent body divorced from the politicians, that when contracts are needed for projects that government identify, those groups examine applications from those parties out there, and the groups or the committees that are doing these are not affiliated with the government in any way. As I say, independent oversight and management of our economy, separation of powers, separation of the politicians from the purse, because that's how we get messed up. We have the politicians dipping into the money and then selecting where the money is to be spent. No, we have committees and organization oversight committees set up to do those things and then report back to the minister. The minister goes back and reports to his constituency and to the nation. They don't need to be involved with money gathering or money spending or who's to get contracts. That's the biggest way to ensure that we maintain this corrupt society that's killing us now. It gives rise to not only that, political cronyism. It gives rise to marginalizing people, because then we end up where it's political bias. You give contracts to your friend who is in your party. This way, we stop that. And that's why I said it's not a difficult process to fix the corruption. We have to just break away from the old way of doing business and address new strategies. So separate the ministers of government and the government from the public purse and from contracts that are issued. This now results in people in the community or ordinary citizens. They go out there and they bid on these contracts, and the best person wins the contract. The best contract that's offered or conditions are offered, we examine them, and those people get those contracts. Then that particular organization then reports to the nation and say, well, this contract was issued to XYZ, explain who Mr. XYZ is, why the contract was given to them as opposed to the other persons, rather than there's this policy of saying when bids are being taken in from government, we don't have to take the lowest bid, or we don't have to take a bid from this person, that person, which is understandable, because somebody come in and lowball on a contract and they can't do the job. So we don't want that. But at the same time, this organization, independent oversight organization for issuing contracts, will now give a report to people, or the people of the country, and to the ministers, who now go to parliament and decide or talk about things But now we have them not playing a role in issuing contracts. And the people who get it are known now because they're publicized to the general public. He got the contract because he did this, that, that. If he messes up on this contract or he doesn't deliver, this is what we have in place. If he isn't performing, then we have an agreement in place that to remove him and put somebody else in place. Simple things that people in business, corporations now operate at that level. So why isn't government operating at that level? The government is a corporation. You have different departments in a corporate entity that handles this, that handles that, and they decide on what's going on with this. Then they come to a general meeting and they discuss it, and you throw it out there for the board of directors to look at. The board of directors in this case is the Jamaican people. They decide on whether this is a good move or not, so that when election comes, the board of directors votes and say, we don't want you here because you screw up this. Money was filtered to you. It's your cousin, we found out, is your 10th cousin down the road, and then you give him the contract. And that's one of the problems now with the present PM. As I said, I don't know the gentleman personally. My interaction with him is, however, disappointing because we sent him information years ago to say, this is going on, you're the prime minister. Apart from the fact that it's destroying this country, you need to help the citizens of this country and help people who are investing in this country to stop this from happening. And not even a word. And I've mentioned it in videos already that the only thing, I asked for a petition to be done so that Jamaicans could weigh in on it. They said they weren't going to do it, but they sent something to me a couple of weeks after about some load bike that they're importing and it making noise. You know, that's the kind of priority they give to our business. And so we have to deal with that. But again, and I keep saying but, because there's very else I can say, because our people won't stand up and make these decisions, that we have to demand these things from the politicians and from whosoever wants to lead. In fact, before they get in there, as I said to you in a previous video, we sit them down and say, you're going in there, this is what you need to do, and if you can't do it, then don't go. You know, you're going to tell us precisely how you'll be doing it before. Don't just make promises. And then you're getting there, it's all chaos because you don't know what you're doing. Just like the contractor, you don't give the guy who's making you the best deal in terms of cost and drop somebody who's better qualified, has the resources to complete the project because you like this guy, and then he messes up the job. It's the same thing. You have these people, you interview them, and the person that looks the best on paper and has the experience or no experience but has a structured plan of action, then that's who we give the job to become a politician or a leader, and forget this nonsense about the party selecting people and then we are forced to accept them. Because in truth and in fact, you have no choice. There's no choice. If the political parties accept these people and throw them at you and say, these are your candidates, what choice you have? You have these competitions in their party, and 2 or 3 people run. But these are the same people, same ideas, no fresh ideas coming in, no fresh people. And that's the other weakness with our country, that we have all the same people constantly at the helm running things, and the fresh brains, fresh thinkers are left out in the cold. As I said, when you're getting old, you need to get out of there. You don't need somebody at 70 or 75 driving a car down the road when they have vision issues. It's going to cause chaos on the highway. And it's the same thing with our country. It's the same thing with the courts. It's the same thing with people's lives. So we have to retire these people early. Pay them more money. So if they're trying to work to hold on to an income, make sure they have a good income before they get to that retirement age, and bring in fresh minds. You should retire judges at 55 and bring in fresh people to handle the job. All that reading and reasoning won't be as clouded. And again, if we find it screwing up, kick them out of there. Get them out. Just like any other agency or government. The person that's in there working, if they're not performing, we need to get rid of them. And it's as simple as that. So persons who are thinking it's only a few people that needs to do this job, no. The country and its citizens must rally behind anything that's going to fix this country. So it's not just about Mr. Patterson, or it's not just about me. It's not just about my partner, or just about Carlos over Carlos TV, or the other gentlemen on the other platforms, the bloggers. They talk, they deliver, but it's for you to pick up what they're saying, act on it. Because unless we have that happening, nothing is going to be resolved. And I want you to realize, if you look at what's happening in the world, it's not getting better. I saw an article the other day that Jamaica's water is drying up pretty much, in simple terms. Before they came out with that article, I posed the question to say, what we're doing about our water, what we're doing about our environment, what are we doing about it? We see the rest of the world drying up. I mentioned Nestle is buying up water all over the planet. I said, what are we doing? We just live day for day waiting on somebody to come up with solutions. Bauxite is being mined. Bauxite is polluting the country and destroying our natural environment, the watersheds. But we make them sell the bauxite and bring in these countries that are mining the bauxite, that only care about getting the bauxite out and the profit. They don't care about coming in and killing the country. So these Russian companies or Chinese companies that's coming in to mine bauxite, what about our children down the road? What about our health? What about polluting our waters with the chemical, killing off the fish, killing off the wildlife? Is it worth it? It's like Africa. We allow people to go in there and just shoot, kill the wildlife, and now most of them are on the endangered list. Are we that silly? So it's the same thing in Jamaica. The people are going to be on the endangered list soon, because the water we're consuming, poisoning our food, poisoning us. We end up in hospital and greater medical bills, and the country can't afford all this artificial medicine. So we need to sit down and re-strategize how we're going to go about making sure we have a country that works. And again, I'm always going to point to it, unless we get rid of corruption, because these people have special interests. That's why they're corrupt. And they work that special interest because they're in certain sectors of society or leadership in society that they work their way into. We didn't put them there. They voluntarily put themselves out there, and we bought into it. They're not running private industry. We have to get rid of this idea that people are going to come in and trick us into being elected, and then when they get there, they do what they want to do, and to heck with the rest of the people and the citizens. And again, this whole scenario that started with SSL and the fraud, it's because these people figure the ordinary Jamaican is not worth the time of day to consider them as being opinionated in deciding on what's happening in their own country. Because we keep our mouth shut, we only focus on what we need to eat now, wash our clothes, and figure it's it. What are you going to eat tomorrow when the country is destroyed and people are at war? You see, Ukraine didn't know they would be in this dilemma right now, because an unscrupulous political leader invaded their country, and the rest of the world sat there and allowed it to happen. The same thing in Syria. The rest of the world sat there while a lot of these Syrians were being brutally taken out by a dictator, their own leader, Assad. And nobody is doing anything and just sitting there. But my theory is that they're sitting there because this is genocide, and it's an easy way to reduce the population on the planet. So we allow these wars to continue until a certain number of people are killed off, and then it worked in favor of these politicians who sit there and they want to find ways to reduce population anyway. Look at Africa, the things that's happening there. In Jamaica, you think all this persons going around and taking away people's lives, and we can't stop the guns from coming in and the bullets is not by design. So we have to, again, think what's happening to us, why it's happening, and come up with the solutions. If we don't want people to be taken away from us, our loved ones, by weapons of war that we don't make, then certainly pressure the politicians and the police to stop it from happening, because they know who's out there doing it. They know who's bringing in these guns, and they sit there quietly pretending, they're trying to fix the problem. One of the things, again, I'm going to encourage Jamaicans to do is I suggested we form organizations. We need to, because for one thing, all those persons who've been hurt by weapons of war coming from the US, from manufacturers of those weapons, we can sue them. And the sooner we start suing them for the casualties that we're facing in this war, then, they'll stop making sure, or they'll make sure those weapons don't get to our shores, because it's going to cost them and their profits. And that's the one thing these people understand. If you want to stop these people from getting involved in your country and hurting it by allowing their weapons of war to get here by any means possible, then the only way to stop them is to sue them. As I said in a previous video, the slave trade didn't end because we had some human rights activists in Europe working their butts off, which we did have them, to stop the brutality of slavery. It was because the insurance companies started to lose money because these unscrupulous murderers were taking Africans from Africa, and when they got to the open sea or near to the in the Caribbean, they would dump them over the side of the ships and then report that they died at sea. And so they would collect those resources or the money from the insurance companies. So when they discovered that this was happening and the insurance company was losing a ton of money, then they stopped doing. That's when they came up and said, we need to stop this trade. So again, everything is by design. Nothing happens on its own. That's how the world operates. Nothing happens on its own. Not even the weather. God makes that happen. He designed this planet for those things to happen. They just don't just pop up. The world didn't just pop up and started to function like a perfectly oiled machine. And that's why I don't believe in this whole nonsense about evolution. Everything is too perfectly aligned, working smoothly to create the seasons, to create the weather, the currents of the ocean. All of that's necessary for us to live on the planet. It can't be by accident. So again, nothing in our world happens by accident. Everything is manipulated. And I said and will say it again, all these bodies we're piling up in Jamaica by these weapons of mass destruction, getting into the hands of people who leave school, whether they can read or write or not, they don't have a job, or where they're getting all these weapons from. Where are they getting the resources for these weapons? Somebody else is passing it on to them, and I'm pretty sure we can identify those persons once we get organized. But I, or Mr. Patterson, or anybody else that's ambitious and wants to see this country grow and do better, cannot do it on our own, especially if you want to change the status quo. If you want to get away from the traditional way of doing things, it means we have to work in mass, in numbers. They can't take out everybody, or they can't take out all the organizations. If we have multiple organizations working for the common good, that means we have to re-educate ourselves, re-socialize ourselves, know what we want and go for it. And this country can be the greatest country on the planet if we want it to be. And remember, not everybody's going to be able to run off this island. So the people who are there and are dedicated to build their country, let's do something about it. Don't wait for me or Mr. Patterson or anybody else to emerge. Let's one-on-one get together. The persons who are talking about it are obviously concerned. The comments show that you're concerned. And what we have to do is take those concerns and bottle them and put them together and make things happen. You didn't come to just sit and eat and go home and sleep and worry, get stressed over what's happening and think you don't have any control. I'm pretty sure you don't want to be walking home and then some jackass who doesn't think about his own future, come home and take you out or hurt your family because they're not thinking about their future. Because anybody that's thinking about their future would know that's a dead-end game. You're going to get caught and you're going to be you're going to be taken out as well, because that's how the program works. They arm you, they put you in possession of these things. You go out and commit all kind of ills against people. Yeah, these same people arrange for you to get funding. You take back funding to them, and it becomes a vicious cycle. And then eventually, your name and your attitude and everything you're doing is described and set out there and leaked. Then the officers of the law are then sent in to deal with you. And you know what dealing with you means. Chances are you won't be getting out. So your future is a dead end. And you should be thinking about this. And I'm saying this for mothers who are here listening to this, or will sharing a video later or in the future. Mothers, potential mothers, prospective mothers, fathers, the same thing. You have a responsibility to tame your sons. You have a responsibility. That's why they go out and they commit all kind of crimes against females. And how could any boy or man hurt a female? You had mothers. And if your mother was nice to you, don't hurt other people, because there's something fundamentally wrong with anybody that does that, intellectually or otherwise. And this excuse about mental illness, yeah, you might be mentally ill. That's the definition we put on it and cap it and try to justify it. But any man that goes out and hurts a female, a child, a girl, for whatever reason, you have a problem. And it's not the rest of people that have the problem. And if you have that problem, then you need to deal with it. You have issues, go to the health professionals and work it out. Because you're destroying lives, you're destroying the country. And again, everything that happens in the country, people might think it doesn't have any impact. But guess what? Globally, your country depends on what's happening in the country for you to interact with the rest of the world, or the rest of the world to interact with you. We have a strong economy that's based on tourism. You think anybody wants to come to Jamaica when they hear all of that going on? A lot of us blind our eyes and we come, yes, because it's home. But imagine the people who aren't coming. Imagine the people that could be flooding the shores and empowering us, because our economy is doing much better. So all you people out there or in Jamaica who are not thinking about yourself, thinking about your country and what you're doing to it, then you need to start thinking that it affects you. It shortens your lifespan. It shortens the lifespan of the people you take out, and it's no good for us. And so, as I said, this was supposed to be a short video, but again, it's stretching on because there's so much happening, and there's so much happening politically now that it's scary. It's really scary. And we have to take charge of our lives and the lives of the people in our country. And so, again, please subscribe, pass the information on to other persons, hit that like button. As I said, I'm not here to try to make money off this video, but the reality is the more people who watch it and participate and keep us getting the information out and hopefully stimulating people to think about what's going on, it's going to make a difference. And when the first video I did, in that first video, and everybody who hasn't seen it should go and see that it's the one entitled, it opens the channel when you look up "Scamming Billions in Jamaica, the fence that broke the camel's back." In that video I told persons I was going to put on Amazon. It actually is there. Everything I've put out there, everything I've said, in condensed version. I've scanned the documents, a lot of documents, even more than I've presented on the videos, so that if you want to have the evidence and it's there for any reason, law enforcement can go there and go to Amazon and just find it, the fence that broke the camel's back, and then get the documents and get the evidence, everything there. So again, it's there to preserve the evidence. So again, if anything does happen, nobody can say they can't get the evidence. I'm not here, so they can't. No, it's there. Everything, and it's in the courts. So people, please share the information, look at the other videos, make comments on what you've heard, and whether you agree with it or not, make your comments, because that's the only way we are going to come to a common consensus that's going to work for all of us. So thanks again. Have a great night. looking forward to getting the information out. I'm going to be doing, as I said, a video on the whole government involvement, the judges' involvement, which is in conflict with the Constitution, because a lot of the things they're doing is in conflict with the Constitution. I'm also possibly going to highlight other cases, because this matter that I'm presenting to you now, believe it or not, has snowballed into several other cases. And that's one of the things that I suggested the other day, causes the build-up of cases in the court, and then they come out and say they're overwhelmed. But if you have people filing cases after cases that shouldn't have been filed, the judges allow it, then they are playing a role in building up this overdose of cases for the court and the judicial system. So again, it's self-perpetuating. The problems in the court, they are doing it and creating it themselves, and then not doing their jobs. So thanks, all the good people in the court. Hear what I'm saying. Hear what Jamaica is saying. We need this thing fixed. Law enforcement, please act quickly and stealthily on solving these issues, because fraud is not only against me and you need to go take care of them other people, but I need you to take care of this as well. Don't neglect us, because you've done that for more than 15 years already. Have a good one. Talk to you as early as tomorrow. Bye.